Hey, this is Leo for Actualized.org. And in this episode, I'm going to give you a simple 3-step formula for how to be ruthlessly effective at anything. This formula that I'm about to describe will work for anything. So whether you want to be ruthlessly effective at dating, in business, in school, music, art, sports, meditation, relationships, sexuality, it doesn't matter. It'll work for anything. Here's the key, is that you're going to basically find one tactic that works extremely well, and then you're going to exploit it. And that's the gist of what we're talking about here. Now, let me give you the 3-step formula, and I'll summarize it, and then I'll go into some details, and I'll give you examples of how to apply it. So the first step is select your domain. Select your domain. This means that you're going to find and set an intention, a deliberate, specific, clear intention for what it is you want to be ruthlessly effective at. So it doesn't matter, like I said, what it is. It can be anything. Now, just as an example in this episode, I'm going to use becoming a farmer. Just a throwaway example, something silly that we can use that will help us illustrate this formula. So let's say you wanted to be the best, most effective corn farmer. Okay, so if you want that, then make the decision that that's what you want and be specific about it. What do you want exactly? Why do you want it? Right? Set that intention. That's step number 1. So the farmer would say, okay, I'm going to be a ruthlessly effective corn farmer. And I'm really serious about it. I'm not kidding. This is my mission. This is what I've set out to do for myself. For whatever reason, it's important to me, and that's all that matters. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is the one that does a lot of the heavy lifting in this formula, so listen close. You're going to notice one exceptionally effective high-yield technique, a technique that generates a disproportionate amount of tangible results. It's kind of a mouthful, so let's unpack that. It's real simple. You just need to find one technique. That's what we would call a high impact or a high leverage technique. That means it generates some tangible results, and you can see that it's generated some tangible results. That means it's kind of a proven technique for you. You've proved it to yourself. So if you're this corn farmer, there's a lot of different ways that you might go about trying to grow corn effectively. Maybe what you need to do is you need to buy some new land, and that might be one technique. Or maybe another thing you could try is you could try buying a new type of corn seed. Maybe there's a more effective strain of corn that you could be growing, something that grows faster and bigger. So that could be another technique you could try. Another thing you could try is maybe changing the fertilizer or fertilizing your corn more often. That might be a third thing you could try. A fourth thing you could try is maybe watering your plants on a different schedule or putting in a new sprinkler system to water your crops, right? So those are just some ideas, random ideas. Now, what you need to do is you just need to find one really high yield technique. So let's say you're this farmer and you're doing your farm stuff, and then, over the course of several months, as you're tinkering around on your farm with your corn, you discover that, hey, what really makes a big difference is when I add the right fertilizer often. Let's say if I add the right fertilizer every day to my crop, then that's the thing that seems to produce a tangible result. I can see the corn actually growing faster when that happens. Okay, so I found it. I found my high yield technique. That's step number 2. And the key there is to actually consciously, deliberately identify it, right? Out of all the different techniques that you know, which one is the high yield one? Select it. And then the third step is set up a daily habit to use this technique every single day without exception and make 100% commitment to be using this technique no matter what. That's step number 3. And that's it. And if you do that, if you follow through on all those 3 steps, I guarantee you will be very, very effective in any field of life that you want to be effective at. Now, the real secret to this formula is step number 2. It's finding that high yield technique. Now, I hear you. What you might be saying is you might say something like, well, Leo, but how the hell do I find one of these high yield techniques? This seems like it's something hard to do. How do I invent such a technique? And here's the beauty of this, is that you don't have to invent the technique. The technique comes about naturally. It's a spontaneous discovery that comes after you've really followed through on step number 1. Remember, step number 1 is setting that intention and being very clear about what it is you want to be effective at, and setting a commitment to becoming effective. If you do that and you keep that at the forefront of your mind for a period of time, not just for a day or for a week, but for weeks and months, if you do that, eventually what'll happen in whatever field you're involved in, if you're involved in art or music or sports or education or business, you're doing that stuff on a regular basis. You're involved in that field. So what'll happen is that various techniques will come by you rather spontaneously, just kind of through blind luck or trial and error, right? If you're in school and you're trying to find an effective technique in school, you're trying different systems of taking notes, you're doing different things, you're looking at what your friends are doing and how they're studying. So you've got different ideas kind of coming through your mind. Now, all you have to do, you don't have to invent some brilliant genius technique. That would be hard. All you got to do is you just got to keep your mind vigilant enough so that when a technique does come your way and you see that, oh, this actually produces a real tangible result, and it produces quite a bit of result for little work, recognize it. This is where people screw up, is that they don't recognize it. Actually consciously recognize it. Oh, this technique is a special technique. And then immediately write it down when you find this technique, and then plan out your habit, your daily habit. How can you apply this technique every single day, even in just a small way? Maybe it's just 5 or 10 minutes, or maybe it's 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Usually it doesn't need to be a lot of time or a lot of effort, because the secret here is just that the multiplicative effect, the exponential growth will happen over the months and years that you apply this technique. And once you've planned out your habit, you've decided exactly when in your day you're going to do it and how it's going to happen, then you just make 100% commitment, no exceptions, no excuses, that you're going to be using this technique, because you can see the huge yield that it will pay off for you in the future if you just carry this through, right? So that's pretty much it. Now, how did I discover this formula? The way I discovered this formula is actually just recently I discovered it, because for the last 2 years I've been working on enlightenment. And if you know me, I'm pretty excited about enlightenment, and I've been trying various techniques, meditation techniques and self-inquiry techniques. I've been reading lots of books and going to lots of workshops and asking people lots of questions to find the best of the best, right? And just recently I read in a book, I just read this one technique that seemed to work really well for me. I sat down, I tried it, my mind just locked in on exactly what I needed it to lock in on. And even though I didn't have any huge epiphany or enlightenment experience from that one technique, I could see that it was a high yield technique just simply by sitting there for 60 minutes and using it, right? You got an intuitive sense for it. And this will happen to you in your field, whatever field that you're interested in. You'll try these different techniques out, and then you'll see that, oh, this one seems to really have worked really well. Maybe just once, maybe twice. That's your key. Yeah, you got to lock in on that and don't let that go. Most people, what happens is that actually they come across many high yield techniques, but they're just not really conscious, and they don't know how to follow through with this 3-step formula. They don't really take it very seriously. And so high yield techniques come by you. Maybe once every couple of months you see one, but then you just kind of ignore it and you slack off and nothing really happens. So if you keep these steps in mind, then it'll go differently for you. You got to see the exponential effect that following through on this can have for improving the quality of your life. That's what really gets you to buy in and take it seriously. Now, let me give you some examples of how you might apply this. Like, not silly examples like with the farmer, but something that's useful for you and addresses your common day problems. So let's say, for example, that one issue that you're struggling with is you're lacking a good sense of humor, and you want to be more charming, more humorous. Maybe you want to attract the opposite sex better. Okay, cool. But you're not really sure how to do that. So how would you apply this formula? Well, first of all, set the intention. Set the intention that I'm going to be a really humorous person. I'm going to master this. That's step number one. Then as you do that, and you're just going about your life, what will eventually happen is that you will run across, through fluke luck, a high yield technique. Now you might say, well, Leo, I don't know any high yield techniques for how to be humorous. Right now you might not know it, but tomorrow or in a week or in a month, you might know it. And when you do, I don't want you to miss it. So actually what I'll do for you is I'll give you one right now. I actually have an episode that I shot called How to Be Funny. It's like an hour-long episode that goes into a lot of depth explaining a specific technique. It's a very simple visualization technique that'll only take you 10 or 15 minutes to do every single day. And I guarantee that if you use that technique right there, then over the period of 6 to 12 months, you will double, triple, or even increase by greater amounts your sense of humor. So you could just go and use that, watch that episode and use it. So that would give you your step number 2. And then step number 3 would simply be to actually set the plan for the habit into motion and make 100% commitment to use this visualization technique every single day for the next 6 months or 12 months or whatever period you're working with there. Right? So that's how you can apply this to the situation of becoming more humorous. What about business? How could you apply this to business? Well, step number 1 is, what's your intention? Pick exactly how you want to be ruthlessly effective in your business. So let's say you decide that you want to be really effective at marketing in your business. Okay, good. So step number 1 is done. Step number 2 is, what's a high yield marketing technique that really generates some tangible results for you? Now, if you're running a business and you're doing marketing on a regular basis, then chances are you're running across all sorts of different marketing techniques. All you got to do is just pick one that's high yield. That might take you a little while, or maybe you already know one already. Just as a random example, maybe you discover that let's say your newsletter, if you really work on your newsletter and you use the right structure on your newsletter, that generates more sales and attracts more customers for you. Okay, great. So let's say you think that that's your high yield technique. So that satisfies step number 2. And then step number 3 of the formula is just to make a daily habit to use that technique now every single day. 100% commitment with no excuses. So that might mean that every morning, first thing when you get to work is you sit down, you spend 60 minutes writing a new newsletter page copy. And then you add that to your autoresponder or whatever so that it's in the hopper and it's all automated. And you just do that every single day for the next 6 months. And then watch what happens. See, this high yield technique, it doesn't necessarily need to give you everything in one big bang, right? So it's not like you're going to find a technique that will just like make you super humorous or will increase your marketing by 50% or something like that. Usually you don't find things like that. What you find, and what I mean by high yield technique, is that it's relatively high yield. That means actually, in absolute terms, it might only give you like, let's say, a 0.01% increase in your marketing or a 0.5% increase in your humor But even a 0.01% increase in your marketing, if you multiply that by 100 days, 200 days, 300 days in the year, then that adds up to a lot. That adds up to 50% or 100%. You do the math. It adds up quickly over time. But see, most people, they're always looking for like the really, really low-hanging fruit. Like they're looking for a technique that will just solve their problem really quickly. And those techniques generally don't exist. And if they exist, chances are you already know about them and you've already used them and exhausted them, right? And now the only thing that exists is these high-yield techniques which give you incremental increases, but are still extremely powerful when multiplied by 200 days, 400 days, and so forth. How about relationships? Let's say you want to be effective in your relationships. Step number 1, make the intention. What do you want? I want a more loving relationship with my partner. Okay, great. Step number 2, find a high-yield technique. Now, initially you might say, well, Leo, there are no high-yield techniques for being more loving with my partner. But actually, that's not true at all. Go read some books, go watch some videos or whatever, and you will discover many effective high-yield relationship techniques. I'll give you one as an example. You can use this or you can find a different one. Here's one. Every day, you're going to find 3 things that you appreciate about your partner, and then you're going to communicate them to your partner. That's it. Very simple. So let's say that that's step number 2. You've got that figured out. And now step number 3 is to use that, set a plan for how you're going to make a habit of it every single day and make 100% commitment with no excuses and no exceptions. So you're going to have to actually plan out, like, when in the day am I going to say, am I going to call my partner during my lunch break at work? Or maybe in the afternoon or in the evening? How am I actually going to do this? What am I going to say? What are my reservations for expressing my appreciation? Maybe I need to improve my communication skills, right? You got to plan some of that stuff out and then commit to it and do it. And you're going to see big results if you just multiply that out by 3 or 6 or 12 months. How about school? You want to be super effective at school. This is really easy. Firstly, step number 1, set that intention. Step number 2, find a high-yield technique. And with school, high-yield techniques are usually very simple. This isn't rocket science. And in fact, what I would suggest, not just in school, but in all these different areas, most of your high-yield techniques are very simple. They're deceptively simple. They're so simple that oftentimes we just dismiss them and overlook them. For example, here's a simple one for school. Read your textbook every day and take notes on what you've read. Dead simple. But I can guarantee you that if you spend the next year every single day reading your textbook and taking notes on what you've read, you're going to become a rock star student within 1 to 2 to 3 years. If you just keep doing that and doing that and doing that and doing that for every one of your subjects, right? Or if you don't like that one, find a different one. Maybe you find a new note-taking method in class that really works well for you and generates some high-yield results. Great. So take that and do it every day. Or maybe you find a mnemonic technique, some little technique for how to memorize facts better, and apply that every single day to the different facts that you're learning in school and see where that takes you, right? Being effective at school is really pretty simple. It's just that you just got to actually follow through on what I'm telling you here. And then step number 3, again, is plan out your habit and then make 100% commitment, no excuses, to do it every single day for a period of like 6 or 12 months. What about confidence? Let's say you want to get good with confidence. Step number 1, set that intention. Step number 2, find a high-yield technique. What might that be? There's many of them. But let's say you find a technique such as holding strong eye contact with people deliberately. So maybe you read that in a book, or you hear it from someone like me or somebody else, one of your friends. And then you try it out and you notice like, hey, when I actually hold eye contact with the waitress, that makes a difference. That makes me feel more confident. And when I hold eye contact with my teacher, that makes me feel more confident. When I hold eye contact with my mom or my dad, that makes me feel more confident. You notice that, and then now that tells you, okay, this technique is actually producing some results. Now what you do is you go to step number 3, and you make a commitment every single day to practice this. And you find a way, how are you going to practice it? Maybe you practice it on store clerks, or you practice it with waitresses, or you practice it with people at your workplace or at school. And then you just do that every single day. And you're going to watch your confidence slowly build up, incrementally, but significantly if you do it for like 3, 6, 12 months. So I could go on with examples, but I think you get the idea, right? This is how it works. What's the reason that this works? The reason this formula works is a principle called deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is a concept that's part of the mastery concept. It's a really important concept actually for becoming a master at any field in life. Anyone who's at a world-class level, whether it's an athlete, a teacher, a business person, a world leader, a martial artist, or a painter or sculptor, these people have become world-class because they've done deliberate practice. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but just basically in a nutshell, what deliberate practice is it means that you actually sit down and you spend time doing the thing you want to get good at correctly. So best example of this is when you're learning music, like a musical instrument. You sit down, you have a new song, you're not sure how to play it, and you start playing it, and the first 5 notes you get right, but then the 6th note you screw up. So what you do is you have to stop yourself. Don't keep playing, stop yourself, go back to the beginning and play it through until you can get it right. So let's say on the second time you play it through and you get 8 notes deep, and then on the 9th note you screw up. You stop, you go back to the beginning, and then you start again. And you just keep doing that over and over and over again, and every time you do it, you're going to get a little bit better and a little bit further until you get to the point where you can play hundreds of notes of the song with no mistakes. And you just do this over and over again until you master the song. Then you move on to the next song and the next song and the next song. And you can use that process, as simple as that is, to become a world-class musician, artist, professional of any kind. So that's why this works. So this formula gets you to start doing this kind of practice, right? Very deliberately. That's it. That's pretty much how it works. I want to stress, though, for you that I hope that you can grasp the significance of what you're told here. Think about what this can do for your life if you apply this formula in all the areas in your life where you want to be effective, and especially in your self-actualization efforts. Speaking of high-yield techniques, I go to a lot of length to reveal to you high-yield techniques that I discover for personal development. I really reveal techniques for how to become more humorous, how to be better in your relationships, how to accept yourself more, how to develop more confidence, how to meditate better, and so forth. I've really revealed many of these techniques throughout the various episodes that I've released. So man, if you feel like you're at a lack for high-yield techniques, be careful there, because you've been given a lot of them. Just make sure that you're conscious of what I'm telling you here, and you're actually recognizing the significance of these techniques when they come across to you. Because these techniques oftentimes are very innocent looking. They look so simple on the surface that you would never think that I could use this technique to earn $10 million, or I could use this technique to become enlightened, or I could use this technique to create an amazing marriage. But the reality is that, success often comes from very simple sources, done over and over again consistently, with deliberate intention and 100% commitment. That's really the secret to success. If you understand the significance of what I'm telling you here, you can start to see just how big of an impact this could have on the quality of your life over the next 5, 10, or 20 years. It could really mean the difference between a crappy life or a mediocre average life and an absolutely extraordinary life that you completely love that other people couldn't even dream of. That's what this formula can do for you. Very powerful formula. Before I go, I want to give you one final warning in applying this formula, which is that the world is hell-bent on distracting you and knocking you off your path. We live in a very distraction-oriented culture where everyone is vying for your attention. And what's going to happen is that you're going to lack focus, and then you're going to fail at applying this formula if you let yourself get distracted, right? Notice that focus is required at every step in this formula. So step one, to keep your intention. Not only do you have to set your intention, but you have to keep your intention. You don't just set your intention for once and then it's all good from then. No, every single day you have to be setting and recommitting to your intention. I want to get good. I want to get really effective at my marketing or at my relationship or at my schoolwork, whatever. So that requires focus. Step number 2 requires focus. You need to be focused on the fact that, hey, high yield techniques are out there. And if I just stay vigilant, if I stay focused and vigilant, then I will notice them as they come across my field of awareness over time. So that requires focus. And then step number 3 requires the most focus, which is to actually sit down, create a habit, and then follow through on that habit every single day without fail. That requires tons of focus because you're going to get distracted by video games and Netflix marathons and good food and good relationships and fun with your friends and stuff going on at work and a crisis in your family and some health concern. All this stuff will try to distract you. Your job is to maintain your focus, stay grounded, keep your original intention in your mind every single day, write it down on your bathroom mirror or something so it's always with you. All right? And that is it. If you apply this, you're going to get amazing results. I'm done signing off. Go ahead and click the like button for me, please. Click that like button. Post your comments down below. I do read the majority of the comments that you guys post me. Share this with a friend. And lastly, come check out Actualized.org. This is my website right here. I got a free newsletter that helps you to stay on track with self-actualization. All the most advanced techniques and concepts that I discover for myself to create the kind of amazing life that I want, I try to share with you. And I do that on a weekly basis. This is a lifelong commitment, right? This is not something you just do for a week or for a month because you want some quick little result. This is a commitment to living a life of excellence, living a life of self-mastery. And that requires changing your mental filters and tinkering with your internal psychology, how you see the world, how you see relationships, how you see yourself. All these are important things, and there's a lot of specific techniques and concepts that I need to teach you, which really requires a commitment from you. At least once a week, watch one of my episodes and just keep doing that. And you'll notice that if you just make that one commitment right here, speaking of a high yield strategy, just make this one commitment and follow through with it for 1 or 2 years. Watch a couple hundred of my episodes. Man, your entire understanding of life will transform. This is the kind of stuff that you would not learn in 50 years by yourself. It takes quite a bit of work to research all this stuff, and a lot of trial and error goes into it, right? So a lot of thought goes into explaining these concepts to you. So don't take it for granted, especially because it's free. And there's a newsletter that will really make it easy for you to stay on track with that. Also, I have a life purpose course. Check that out. Check out my book list. So I got some great resources for you there at Actualized.org. Also a forum where you can go and interact with other people for free who are doing self-actualization, who can help you on this journey of yours. So go check all that out, sign up, and I'll see you soon with more.